Alrighty, so it's a late night yapping session. Yapping with Renegade. Yapping with King Renegade. I don't know how we're gonna call this, but we're gonna try to have a good time. Silent Hill and the future of Silent Hill and how Bloober Team just completely came out the door. They laid it on the table and they said, we're gonna do a fucking awesome game. They basically showed out. It was incredible. Strike the bat, boom, the ball is out the park, and we are sitting here cramming and talking and saying, you know, we want more remakes, we want more of these to be made. What are we gonna do next? What is the next best step? And I think eventually you get to these conversations where this will happen and people will ask questions and clamor and get fan excitement, and I believe this is kind of common, right? We had this euphoria before with Resident Evil and how we wanted more and more and more, and how we probably will get more and more and more in the future. The popular fan remake that people want to happen the most, it seems, is Silent Hill 1. I did a poll not too long ago on Twitter, on X, and I said, which remake do you guys want to see next? And a lot of you chose Silent Hill 1. It was a game that was a product of the 1999 era of video games, the same year that Dino Crisis came out, and it took the world by storm. It was Konami's like sort of answer to RE. It was Konami's baby, in a sense, the baby they kind of didn't want, because Team Silent had to rebel against Konami to get this game made. They wanted a typical Resident Evil style zombie game, and Team Silent was like, no, who wants that? Let's just work on something else, because our competition is the one taking that by storm. And they made Silent Hill all psychological, went into Twin Peaks, David Lynch territory, fucking Jacob's Ladder, and that's how we got the baby that is the psychological mess of Silent Hill today. This game could use a lot of changes. Namely, I think it could have some better plot cohesion, maybe tell the story of Alyssa a lot more like clearly through the scenes. I know the game does have that context and everything, but I feel like with how Silent Hill 2 Remake integrated to all of its plot additions, additional lore, additional storytelling, additional scenes, these would be pivotal to Silent Hill and show like more of Lisa's like humanity, empathy towards Alyssa and how she tried to take care of her, maybe give those signs of how she is once again otherworldly. There's so many things you could do. You could illustrate the Order a lot more as a looming, menacing threat now, and give more details to the situation that was not done in the original. Give more weight, meaning, balance, more emotion. It's a lot of things you could do with like just better acting these days. So I would really appreciate something like that. It's a lot of subplots they need to tie into the main story as well. Lots of things going on. Kaufman, then you have obviously fucking Alyssa, then you have Alyssa's mom, I forget her name, the crazy bitch. It's a lot of characters in this game to really color up on, and I would like to see more of them in action as we lead to our final destination at the end of the game. Also, remember what I said when I said they need to fix the whole thing with Alyssa? It just finally like jogged in my head now, where in the beginning of the game, I think she gets like all burnt and shit like that, and you see like a montage of her in the bed in bandages, at least in some scenes or whatever. That means she survived the fire, and we know that, but then she's like held off in containment, and then she splits her soul into the baby, Cheryl, and then Harry picks up the baby. So you get some context clues there. I think maybe that should be more integrated in the story as well, as opposed to being like a beginning sizzle reel that the player has to put together. They have to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and then you can see the evil, the rest of her power and everything to sort of protect herself, the evil manifest in Silent Hill, and see that aftermath of what happened after Alyssa was burnt, and the interactions of her being like all alone, isolated, in fear, turned into this charred freak. It could turn into some very fucked up sequences in the game if they decide to highlight on that more and show more of that context, which I think is, once again, really important. Next we have Silent Hill 3. So Silent Hill 3 is it's just the one that kind of got butchered in the process for game development. If people don't know, or if they aren't well aware, Silent Hill 3 was cut in production because they wanted to make a Silent Hill rail shooter, because they believe that Silent Hill 2 like sold like shit. Look it up, believe me, I researched this. It was quite crazy when I saw it. So they wanted to harken back and fix the problem and make a game that was worthy of the Silent Hill name that people will actually like, and Silent Hill 3 came to be. But it had like half the production cuts, and I would assume this goes into level design and things of that nature. Let's add some of that stuff back. Let's go ahead and remake it and extend it. And I mean, Silent Hill 2 is like extended the fuck out of by Bloober Team. They could do some of the same with Silent Hill 3, and then it could feel like a fully fledged game. A lot of cool segments that you could do, namely with a lot of the enemies as well, because Silent Hill 3 is a very hard game. So I want to see how the combat coordinates with either the katana, the mace, you know, and then you get extra shit like fucking lightsaber, which is cool. It was really cool to mess with a lot more of weapon variety. You got a block in that game, so maybe you could do some stuff with that, block around, dodge, because the enemies are a lot more plentiful in Silent Hill 3. They're everywhere, all right? It's no joke. They reamed me into oblivion when I was playing that game. So I want to see those segments like touched up on and made frightening for the masses, and even more disturbing and fucked up. And they have this whole occultist plot with the Order and Heather, and they're trying to reel God out of her body. So I think the basic fundamentals for the story and the sheer twisted nature is here, but we need more to the level design. And again, Silent Hill 3 has a lot of enemies. Like, all of these games have a lot more enemies than Silent Hill 2 and enemy variety, so they could take that into the other world and make like more malformed and bloated and more interesting enemies with like differing attacks that they already have in the game. I had a friend that said he wanted to see the amusement park like expanded upon, and I personally agree with that. I think Borley Haunted Mansion, you could do a lot more tricks. I think the vengeful ghosts and residents trying to kill you in this sort of haunted mansion is pretty disturbing, and maybe they could show more of the dead bodies, the people that came there and died, more expansion of the amusement park, and those really good segments of Silent Hill 3 could add more meat to the bones, more meat to the chicken that you could really just enjoy, appreciate, and make it feel a lot more juicy. Those emotional sequences where Heather mourns her father dying. And by the way, I have to say, do not jump into Silent Hill 3 immediately. I know it's tempting. To do that. You have assets now from Silent Hill 2 Remake, and you can easily jump in there clean, but you need the context of Silent Hill 1 before jumping into Silent Hill 3. If you're gonna do them in order, I agree with the fan order. Now, if they remade 2, fine. You got the popular one out of the way. Now, let's do 1 or 4, because 4 is not like interconnected with much of anything outside of 2, and they already did 2. But either way it goes, I won't like the fact if they decide to touch up on Silent Hill 3 first without the context and the story and the characters and Harry Mason's journey of Silent Hill 1. We need that immediately if you're going to do 3 in any capacity. Silent Hill 4 The Room is almost a no-brainer when you think about what they could amend and fix and alter, because I could think of quite a few. Number one is that we have Henry Townsend, probably to this point one of the more boring Silent Hill protagonists. He's just boring, a blank slate, not really all that interesting. The first thing you could do is give him a personality, make him feel more, make him show more emotions, whether they be empathy or sorrow or anger at the situation that he's in. I think you could easily do that, bring out the emotions of this character and show us a lot more interest in his story, as opposed to him just meandering about saying what the hell all the time. You could do a lot more with this character. I think more integrations with Joseph Scriber would be good. He's the previous tenant of room 301, and more backstory of the tenants that was there before they turn into ghosts in the other sections of the game. I know people will say they want the ghost toned down or whatever, but I still want the game to be relatively hard, give you some items to attribute to that. More guns would be nice, because Silent Hill 4 lacks a lot of weapons. It does, on the gun front at least. A lot of cool melee weapons, but we need more guns in that game to utilize for the player, and that will be enjoyable actually. More guns and more sub weapons for Eileen to use as well. Make it overall just permeating with scares, because Silent Hill 4 has some very interesting enemy designs, the twin victims, the ghosts themselves, Walter. You could do cool stuff with Walter, and the whole idea of the 21 sacraments. It might also need some fixes to the balancing. I'm not sure what I would do here. I know the second half of the game is a clusterfuck. This is where people say it's the worst part of Silent Hill, where they repeat the levels over again that you played before, just with Eileen now. I would make them drastically different, like not even remotely close to the same. Even if it's like otherworld variants of that world, I would make it super different, so it's like not even recognizable, and people can't say, oh, I'm just backtracking now. These levels are the same thing. I'm just backtracking, going backwards and doing like remedial tasks. I would make it 10 times more creepy, scarier, have some new enemy placements, some new weapons, some new places to thrive in, as you keep the whole game refreshing all the way till the end. And obviously the hauntings in room 301, they need to stay. They need to be like some of the scariest shit possible, some of the scariest subversions possible. Like, I want to see the bloody cat from the fridge just like move. I think that'd be absolutely creepy, like that bloody cat that was in the fridge just move somewhere, and I'd be like, holy fuck, what's going on? Like, the babies in the walls, just do something with that. Make the enemies like come after you in the room itself, like, and they can sort of like come and attack you in that place if you don't have any sort of candles to put down. Make it crazy. I want it to be absolutely insane with the hauntings. So yeah, I think they should have an increased like focus on how they handle the combat and the second half of the game, and how they coordinate the weapons and the item box. Now maybe make more item boxes around the area just in case, to mitigate some of the backtracking. That will work, as opposed to just going to the room and doing an item dump. Maybe leave one item box in a certain area that can help the player out a little bit if they want to progress with the main story, but still have them come back to the room on occasions if they need to solve something or solve a puzzle, or maybe go there for a pertinent story event. I think that interactivity should be there, and it should be coordinated well, and you should make the main character and the antagonist just super interesting. And I think you could make something really good by integrating more of Silent Hill 2. I would love to see the idea of James Sunderland's ghost, which was supposedly gonna happen, but I think it didn't. It was promo art. I would love to see him as part of an area where it's like, oh shit, James is dead and he's haunting me. I know this would upset people that are lore freaks and wondering, hey, it ruined Silent Hill 2, that the whole thing was ambiguous, but we have to remember that Frank Sunderland doesn't know where the fuck his son is, and maybe it's been like an undisclosed amount of time before this whole thing came to be. It could be like a few years, maybe a few months, we don't know. But I feel like at this point, if James is still lost and nobody knows where he is in Silent Hill 4, and his father doesn't even know, it's safe to assume he's still MIA or maybe KIA at this point. And including that ghost would make it very, very insane from a plot perspective. I think that would be sick. Honestly, you could do anything with reimaginings, and if they did, you can make some scary sequences out of that. Maybe James starts to haunt you. You can play with like sounds from Silent Hill 2. I don't know. I just feel like you could include a cool level if they decide to be a little bit daring with a plot point like that, right? It would be honestly something creepy. I did also add this little tidbit of going back and wondering about anything post Silent Hill 1 through 4 just for fun. I don't have too much to say other than there are some ideas they could take, like Silent Hill the arcade, the Little Baroness incident, going back and maybe making like an anthology where they cover everything in the town that happened, the foundation, and what happened to these random people in the town of silent spirits as they continue on and get haunted, and show a game of that magnitude. That could be something interesting, as well as like remaking Silent Hill Origins. You could tie that to the Silent Hill 1 remake. You could also completely redo Downpour. You could completely reimagine Silent Hill Homecoming. I think these are games with two interesting ideas that are flawed in execution. Like, the story for Homecoming could have been a lot more better. You have a war vet in Silent Hill. You could make some Jacob's Ladder style Silent Hill, and they just didn't do that for some reason. Homecoming was just wasted potential there. I want to see that whole war hero Jacob's Ladder version of Silent Hill, where enemies have like maybe mines strapped to them, some PTSD elements of war coming into the town itself, and just completely reimagine that storyline. For Downpour, it's the same thing. What will happen if a criminal was sort of infested with Silent Hill and his sort of torment and his sort of memories being displayed on screen? I would like to see a reimagining of what happens in Murphy's world as a prisoner, and what he sees and what he witnesses and what he experiences. I think the suffering is a great basis for what you could do with the reimagined Silent Hill Downpour, where Murphy's still in jail, but the guards and the enemies and the inmates and all that other stuff, they're running around and they have like these needle syringe appendages coming out of their body after, you know, taking after the lethal injection, or some people are taking after prisoners being hanged as monsters, and that would be kind of sick actually. Some monsters where they have like shotguns attached to their body, and it's kind of like what you do when you put like someone in the middle of a firing squad. That shit would be insanity, bro. I'm like thinking of like the most sickest ideas you could do for reimagined Silent Hill Downpour, because the original was just not it for me. Although I did think that the Boogeyman was a good idea, even though he was carbon copy Pyramid Head. But that's about it. That's the only ideas I can conjure up right now for remaking, reimagining, and doing things in the nature of the Silent Hill franchise after Bluebird just destroyed it right now. Comment below, let me know what you think. Hopefully these ideas are like super pertinent, and tell me what you think in the comment section below. This is Renegade Operative signing out. Your number 2 Silent Hill fan. I will see you guys next time. Later.